The message popped up in the family group chat on Wednesday afternoon, cutting through the silence of my office as I gazed at the graceful lines of the new headquarters building's facade. My phone vibrated, and there it was. My sister's words, bright and polished like a glossy postcard. Hey family, so we finalized the guest list, and it's going to be a very intimate affair. 80 people total. I read it. Then again. Each word hit me square in the solar plexus, knocking the air out of me. Family members who have truly achieved something. Successful careers. Established lives. Our values of achievement and excellence. My stomach twisted. The screen instantly came to life, filling with excited response bubbles. Aunt Sharon was proud of her standards. Uncle Mike, now that's my girl. Cousin Brett, a walking corporate memo, spoke of quality and logic. Mom wrote, great idea. Short, devastatingly. And Madison, my younger sister, chimed in, your wedding should showcase the best of our family. 43 people. 43 likes, champagne emojis, fireworks of approval. I sat frozen, watching my world, my family, transform into a sleek, shiny scrapbook I had no ticket to. And then my phone shook again. A private message. Hey Zoe, just wanted to let you know. Only established career family. I'm sure you understand. Maybe we can grab coffee after the honeymoon. 2 pink hearts. A ticking time bomb masquerading as caring. I threw my phone down on the glass table and it clinked. A quiet, mournful sound. I picked up a pencil, gripped it so tightly my knuckles turned white, and tried to return to my plans. The lines swam before my eyes. There was a knock at the door. Miss Chun, the contractor needs your approval for improvements using sustainable materials. This will add $340,000 to the cost, but will allow us to obtain green certification. My voice sounded alien, steel-like. Certification is more important than cost. She nodded and disappeared. And I was left alone in my spacious office, the chief architect of a project costing millions, feeling like a naked, clueless child who had just been barred from the adult table. In the general chat, they were already choosing cheeses for the buffet in the historic mansion and admiring the financier groom. I typed 3 words. Congratulations, Madison. Wishing you both happiness. No emoji, no heart, just a statement. Then I turned off notifications and rested my forehead on the cold glass of my desk. The assumption that I was a failure wasn't new. It had been a family saga, our Iliad of disappointment, for 8 long years now. It all started when I ran away from law school after my first semester, breaking free from the cage built for me by generations. The path was predetermined. Political science, law school, partnership at a prestigious firm like my father, uncle, and cousin Brett. But that life was suffocating. I hated every day, every false discussion, the future that seemed like a long, flawless, and utterly airless corridor. So I burned my bridges. I grabbed my documents, packed 2 bags, and moved to the other side of the country, to Seattle, where the rain erased the past. I got a job as a junior designer in a firm with 3 employees. First, I designed tiny houses, then cafes and shops where every square meter had to sing. I sculpted spaces from plasterboard and hope, learning from every mistake, every crack in the plaster. Then came the first serious commissions, office buildings where glass and steel were supposed to reflect not only the sky, but also ambition. I moved from an office where we drank coffee from cracked mugs to a mid-size firm with a receptionist, and then a leap to an international giant where they spoke a language of fees I'd only heard before. And 5 years ago, I broke that contract too. I walked out into the void and hung up a sign, Chun Architecture and Design. Now there are 62 of us. We've designed a library that takes people's breath away, a residential complex that's at one with nature, and a university center, the very one that made it into Architectural Digest. The numbers? 18 million last year. We're projecting 24 this year. My life has become a blueprint I've finally drawn myself. But at family dinners, I wore simple jeans and a sweater. I drove up in my old Subaru, not the Porsche that was gathering dust in the garage. When asked about my work, I just smiled and said, "Oh, I do a little design work. I let them think I lived in a modest rented apartment, never mentioning the house in the mountains with panoramic windows I'd envisioned, or the apartment by the ocean. I let them believe their old fairy tale, that Zoe was still struggling, still working for her uncle, still barely making ends meet. It was easier for me to let that myth live. Correcting them meant acknowledging that their opinions still carried weight. And I stopped carrying that weight somewhere around the 3rd year of my real life. So being excluded from Madison's wedding, it should have hurt. It should have torn something inside. But I felt only a cold, almost scientific curiosity. I wonder how long this house of cards, made of their illusions, will stand before it collapses. The week flowed on as usual, a clear and powerful stream. Thursday, a presentation for a Silicon Valley giant. Friday, tons of paperwork for the museum renovation. Saturday, mountain air, the laughter of friends who knew the value of every victory and every crack. And the family chat buzzed like a beehive full of wedding honey. Dresses, bouquets, cake samples. I watched from the sidelines, like a spectator at the theater. And on Sunday, the phone rang. An unknown number. Hello. Hello, is this Zoe Chung? The voice was businesslike, but with a slight tremor. This is Amanda Whitmore from Pacific Design Magazine. We're doing a story about rising stars of architecture, and your name is? We agreed to meet. I put the phone down and went out onto the balcony of my modest apartment, overlooking 3 skyscrapers that held a piece of my vision. They didn't know. They saw nothing. Later, a message came from my project manager. The contract for $31 million has been signed. Champagne tomorrow. I responded with a terse yes. And right on top of it, a new photo from Madison. Ribbons, lace. The contrast was so stark, it made me want to laugh. On Monday morning, during a meeting deciding the fate of a complex structure, the phone in my pocket started going crazy. I silenced it. The world of bridge piers and loads was more real. When I emerged an hour and a half later, the screen showed 27 missed calls and 64 messages. My entire home was calling me to the carpet. I opened the general chat. It was like the epicenter of an explosion. It all started with an innocent question from Madison's future mother-in-law, who had stumbled across an article in Pacific Design Magazine online. Then Madison's puzzled response, no, it can't be. But someone had already posted a link, then another, and another. A photo of my university center, my company's website, with my face at the top. The silence broke. Aunt Sharon, I'm baffled. When did this happen? Uncle Mike, it says here, founded 5 years ago. How so? Cousin Brett, Mr. Logical. Wait, she designed the Harrison Community Center. That building is legendary. Mom choked up. Zoe, why didn't you say anything? Dad, trying to deny the obvious. That can't be. You're just a hired designer. And finally, Madison, her message exuded icy, stifled shock. I'm completely baffled. I scrolled through those 64 messages, a whirlwind of exclamation points, accusations, and false astonishment. Words danced before my eyes. How is this possible? Why are we in the dark? Explain this immediately. Every word was a brick in the wall they'd erected between us. My fingers typed a reply coldly, almost mechanically. The information on the website is accurate. I founded the company 5 years ago. We have 62 people. I have an interview with Pacific Design Magazine tomorrow. I sent it. I turned the phone face down. It immediately began to tremble like a wounded animal, vibrating nonstop for 30 long seconds. Then came the private messages, each with its own hint of panic. Madison, Zoe, I didn't know. Why didn't I say anything? This is incredible. You're definitely at the wedding. I'll send you an invite. 2 hearts, just like after that venomous warning. Mom, you made us think you were in need. You let us worry. Why this show? Dad, ponderously, we need to talk. Families don't keep secrets like that. Aunt Sharon, mortified. I told everyone you were barely making ends meet. Now I'm going to look like a complete idiot. And even Brett with forced slang. Dude, you're awesome. Why so modest? I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I went to lunch with the team. We laughed, raised glasses to the new contract, to our shared success. The air was light, unburdened by suspicion. I returned to the office and immersed myself in the drawings, in the lines that didn't lie, in the calculations that mattered. By evening, there were 93 missed calls on my phone. I finally picked up the call from my mother, the 7th. "Zoe, finally! We've been on the phone all day." "I was working. What happened?" "What happened? I need to understand why you've been living a lie for years." "I never lied." "You let me think you were an employee, not a word about your firm." "I told you I opened a practice at Uncle Mike's birthday party. You said, 'How sweet, dear,' and started talking about Brett's promotion." The silence on the line was as thick as it could be. "I don't remember." "I told Dad about the community center 2 years ago. He said, 'I think I'm finally starting to take architecture seriously, and maybe I'll even do something worthwhile with it.'" "But you didn't correct us. You didn't explain the scale." "Mom, I tried to explain for 3 years. They interrupted me, brushed me off, told me architecture wasn't serious. I stopped. But I still built a company. Your fantasies about my failure weren't my job to destroy." "That's not fair. You drove an old car, lived in a dump, dressed like—" "What do you mean? Like someone who's comfortable, someone who doesn't need to show off the restaurant bill to feel accomplished." My voice was as even as a concrete slab. "I dress impeccably for my clients. I live where I'm comfortable. I drive a car that starts every morning. None of this is a sign of failure. You just decided it is. Madison is devastated. She now wants you at the wedding. I have no doubt about it. Will you come?" I opened the calendar. The wedding is on Saturday. And on exactly that same day, the groundbreaking ceremony for the museum's renovation project. 2 years of preparation, a $47 million contract, a building that will become my signature on the horizon. I have professional commitments that day. "Zoe, it's your cousin's wedding. Family first." Family really does come first. So it would have been right to include me from the start. But Madison was crystal clear, only successful ones. She decided I wasn't right for her. I accepted her decision. She didn't know. No one knew. You didn't know because you didn't ask. You assumed. And now you want me to break my professional commitment because your assumptions turned out to be wrong. I took a deep breath. "No, Mom, I won't be at the wedding, but give Madison my best wishes." "You're just being vindictive." "I'm being professional. Those are 2 different things." I hung up without waiting for an answer. The silence in the office was clear and crisp. I walked to the window. The city was lit up. Dozens of buildings, each teeming with the life I'd helped create. My world was here. It was real. And it didn't need their approval to shine. The interview for Pacific Design magazine took place on Tuesday, crisp and professional. Amanda was smart. Her questions were spot on, about design philosophy, about how to make concrete breathe and glass warm. The photographer captured me in the sunset light on the construction site, working on a model, surrounded by my team, their faces lit up with shared excitement. "Your story is captivating," Amanda said, closing her notebook. "From law school dropout to award-winning architect, a true transformation." "I didn't drop out," I corrected gently but firmly. "I changed direction. I redirected my course." She smiled, and a flicker of respect flashed in her eyes. "I like it. Can I use it?" "Please." The article was supposed to come out in 2 weeks. My PR manager was already planning a wave of publications. Meanwhile, my family chat was like a bombed-out anthill. Everyone was bustling, shouting, trying to figure out how they could have missed the elephant in the room. No, not an elephant, an entire skyscraper. Madison unleashed a veritable litany of apologies. "I was misled. Of course you're invited. We'll find a better place for you." I read them and left them unanswered. Words were worthless. On Wednesday, my dad came to my office. My assistant popped in with an air of alarm, as if she were reporting a natural disaster. "Miss Chun, your father." Without an appointment. "He says it's urgent." "Let him in." He walked in slowly, as if entering a museum. His gaze swept over the panoramic windows that took in the entire city, the precise white wood models on the shelves, the chrome awards on the wall, the space that exuded not money, but power. the power of creation. "This is your office," he said, not in a voice, but almost an exhalation. "Yes, impressive. Thank you." He sank into the guest chair, too modern, too low for him, and suddenly seemed smaller than usual. "I came to apologize." "Okay. That's it? Just okay?" I folded my hands on the table, feeling the cool glass beneath my fingers. "What do you want to hear, Dad? You came to apologize for the 8 years my career was invisible to you, for considering me a failure because I didn't follow your path, for approving of your daughter's exclusion from the wedding because she wasn't successful enough. Yes, an apology is in order. I'm listening." He looked at his hands, a lawyer's hands, used to leafing through thick tomes, not blueprints. They trembled slightly. "I was wrong about everything. I wanted you to be me, and when you chose yourself, I took it as a betrayal." "It wasn't a betrayal. It was a choice. Mine. I see it now. But for years, I convinced myself you'd made a mistake, that you'd traded a secure future for a whim. I believed you were barely making ends meet, so that my disappointment would seem justified." "So what? Did justified disappointment make you happier?" "No." His voice broke. "It made me lose 8 years of your life. 8 years of victories I should have been proud of. And it made me agree when my daughter was crossed off the guest list because I, too, considered her unworthy." I remained silent. Let it sink in. Let it melt in him, like ice. "This community center," he struggled to find the words. "I found articles. It won an award. It's being studied. You created it. And when you tried to tell me, I waved you off." "Yes. And this company, 62 people. The awards, the turnover, they've probably already surpassed my practice." "I don't measure success by numbers on a tax return, Dad." "But I do," he blurted out. "And even by my narrow standards, you've surpassed everything I could have ever wished for you in law. You just did it in a field I didn't consider worthy of attention." He looked up at me. For the first time in many, many years, I saw confusion in his eyes, not judgment. And pain. "Can you forgive me?" I considered the question. Slowly. "Forgiveness isn't a button you can press." "I don't know. Not yet. Forgiveness isn't a coin you hand out after an apology. You've carried the story of my failure in your head for 8 years. A simple sorry won't erase it." "What should I do?" he asked, and there was a genuine, unmelodramatic loss in his voice. "Start by getting to know me, really. Not because you now see my success in your terms, but because you're curious why this path is mine, why it was the only true one, even if it's different from yours." He nodded, slowly, heavily. "I would like that. And Dad, stop measuring love by titles. Stop making your place in the family conditional, dependent on success by Forbes standards. Madison didn't learn this out of nowhere. She watched us, how we judge people by their business cards, not by their hearts." He nodded, and in that slow movement was the full weight of years lived and mistakes realized. "You're right. I created this culture." "Yes. Will you come to the wedding? Madison is really looking forward to it now. I'm laying the foundation stone for the museum project that day. It's 6 months away. I won't break my professional word just because someone's opinion of me has suddenly changed." She was wrong. She acted in complete accordance with the values she absorbed here. I'm not angry with her. But I won't encourage it either, throwing everything at her feet now that I've been vindicated. Papa stood up to leave. He turned at the door. "I'm proud of you. I should have said this 8 years ago. I should have repeated it every day. But I'm saying it now. Thank you." After he left, I sat alone for a long time, gazing at the city skyline into which I'd inscribed so many of my lines. Every building was a silent witness, a quiet ally. The wedding was on Saturday. I spent the day at the construction site, wearing a hard hat and holding a ceremonial shovel, surrounded not by family, but by those who believed in my vision, officials, patrons, and my team. The air smelled of damp earth and the future. The museum director spoke of a dialogue between the old and the new, the mayor of cultural investment. Then I was given the floor. "This building will stand for centuries," I said, my voice unwavering. "It will preserve beauty and give birth to discoveries. This is the great privilege of our profession, to create spaces that will outlive us and serve those we will never know. The applause wasn't familial politeness, but recognition. We dug our shovels into the ground, the first gesture of a long labor. My phone vibrated in my pocket the entire time. I didn't look. The celebration continued in the restaurant. Toasts were exchanged, laughter erupted, and the details of the project were discussed. My boss raised a glass to Zoe, who proved that the best life project is the one you create yourself. Everyone smiled. They knew my story, the real thing, unedited. They knew the price of that choice. It wasn't until 9 o'clock that I glanced at my screen. The family chat had gone silent. The last message was Madison's, sent at 4:30. Beautiful ceremony. Too bad you couldn't split it in two. She attached a screenshot from the museum's live stream to a photo from her wedding. Me at the microphone, wearing a hard hat, against a backdrop of cranes and sky. And underneath it, a solitary comment from my father. This is what real success looks like. Sorry it took so long to see. An article in Pacific Design magazine came out 2 weeks later. Zoe Chun, when you're on the right track. It talked about my leaving law school, my first steps, my philosophy. The headline quoted my words, "I didn't quit." I've redirected my focus to what's more important than other people's expectations. Mom called almost immediately. Everyone's talking about that article. My friends, my family, even my pastor, they're all asking why we hid your success. What should I tell them? The truth makes us look terrible. So maybe tell the truth. It doesn't matter. She froze on the other end of the line. I've read it 3 times. You talk about philosophy, about the team, about projects, but not a word about family. Yes. Is that intentional? Yes. My career wasn't built by my family. It was built by my choices, my teachers, my colleagues. Why mention those who turned away from this path from the very beginning? That's cruel. It's true. I paused, softening my voice. Mom, I love you. I love Dad and Madison and everyone. But my success isn't yours to brag about. You didn't support this path. You discouraged me. You can't rewrite history now that the ending turned out beautifully. So what now? Pretend those 8 years never happened? No. Acknowledge them. Accept that you considered me a failure and treated me accordingly. Understand that your love was conditional and dependent on your own criteria. And then decide if you want to build something new. Do you want to? I glanced around the office. The models, the blueprints, the team's faces behind the glass wall. This whole world, created in defiance. I've already built something new, I said quietly. The question is, do you want to be part of this reality, or are you still more comfortable living in your fantasy? Madison called the next day. Her voice sounded without its usual gilding, muted and honest. I read the article, she said without preamble. I need to apologize, for real, not the ostentatious kind you've been putting out there in chat. Okay. I excluded you because I thought you weren't successful, because I was taught that success was a diploma on the wall, a title in your signature, an office in the tower. You didn't fit that mold, so I just brushed it off. Yes, but I should have asked, showed interest in what you really lived for, and definitely not announced to the whole family that I was only inviting successful people. That was cruel, even if I didn't realize it then. It was honest, I said. Cruel, but honest. And you know, I respect that more than a fake invitation after the fact. The wedding was beautiful, Madison said quietly, but everyone was talking about your cornerstone, the museum, your company. My day has turned into conversations about your absence, not my presence. I'm sorry. You shouldn't. I deserved it. I spent weeks planning an event to show off my successful relatives, and it turned out I'd crossed out the most successful one. Poetic justice. I laughed, dryly but sincerely. How's family life? Good. Really, good. David is supportive and kind. We're building something real. She paused, and there was a hint of effort in her voice. I want the same with you, a real relationship. Can we start over? Can I finally get to know who you are instead of inventing you? I'd like that. Great. And one more thing. I want to hire your firm. What? David and I are buying a house lot. I've looked through your portfolio. Your residential projects, they breathe. I want you to design our space. Madison, you don't have to out of a sense of duty. It's not a debt. You're a brilliant architect, and I want to live in the world you create. And selfishly, I want to work with you, to see how you think, to understand what I've been missing all these years. I opened my calendar. My schedule was jam-packed. The details have arrived. Let's schedule a consultation. Thank you, Zoe, for everything, for achieving success despite us, not because of us. It's inspiring. I hung up. Despite us, not because of us. The phrase hung in the air, resonant and bittersweet. The most honest confession I'd made in all these years. 3 months later, I stood on the bare foundation of Madison and David's future home, unrolling the plans. The wind blew through the freshly made wood frame. Madison asked precise questions about light and perspective. David inquired about eco-friendly materials. This window placement, Madison pointed at the plan, it catches the entire sunset. How did you guess? I spent half a day here, watching the wind blow, how the pine tree cast a shadow, where the sun rose. A good home isn't about the walls. It's about how you live in it. That's what the article was about your approach. That's the whole point. After discussing the details, Madison walked me to the car. The family is getting better, she said cautiously. Dad talks about your projects at dinner now. Mom brags to her friends. It seems like they're seeing you for the first time. They really are seeing you for the first time. The question is how long this vision will last once the novelty wears off. I think it will. You changed us. You made us question our own standards. I didn't change anyone. I simply refused to bend myself to your mold. You decided to change. She hugged me before I got into the car, tightly, truly. Thank you for the house and for not cutting us out of your life, even though you had every reason. Family is a complex project, I said, starting the engine, but it's worth building when everyone is willing to contribute. I returned to the office, the same spacious one, mine. Meetings, viewings, and a celebration celebrating my lead designer's promotion lay ahead. My phone vibrated. A message in the family chat. My father had shared a photo from a legal conference. On the speaker's screen, my Harrison Community Center, as an example of a successful public space. They don't know my daughter designed this, he wrote, but I do. I'm proud. It was a small thing, just a couple of lines. But there were no conventions, no judgments, no comparisons. There was simply a statement of fact in which, finally, the simple, unvarnished truth shone through. And for both of us, this was the only solid foundation on which we could build further.